text buzzed my pocket while I was halfway down into the engine room of a 60-foot Sportfisher, elbow deep in a tangle of cooling hoses and salt. "Do you confirm your hotel cashback?" it read. "I'm a marine technician. My hands smell like diesel and brine, not lobby candles." I stared at the word hotel until it blurred. I hadn't left San Diego in months, unless you count a Tuesday in February when I drove to Oceanside to pick up a busted impeller for a client too cheap to pay shipping. I climbed up into the morning, blinking. Harbor Island glittered like it tries to every day, even when a low marine layer turns everything the color of old pewter. The pelicans were doing their slow prehistoric patrol. The owner's son waved at me from the dock with the loose wrist of a kid who has never had a tool slip and skin his knuckles. I typed back, "N-O," and felt something in me say yes. "My name is Ryan, 46. I make thrumming engines behave for a living. My wife is Clara. She's 40. When people asked what she did, she said, 'I'm a volunteer at the national park, like the sunshine paid a salary.' She meant Cabrillo, lighthouse, tide pools. Her Instagram was all kelp and windblown hair and captions about stewardship. I used to feel proud when she stood on Point Loma with her arms wide and the ocean behind her, like she was pointing at our life and saying, 'Look what we get to protect.'" I wiped my hands on a rag, left a note for the owner about a clogged strainer, and sat in my truck with the AC blasting cold enough to make my forearms ache. The card app already had the charge flagged in yellow. "Congratulations, you earned hotel cashback." The date was yesterday, a Monday, which had been one of Clara's volunteer days. The city on the booking? Downtown. The hotel? Nondescript, one of those business brands that promises espresso in the lobby and delivers warm brown water and a smile. I scrolled. Not the first one. 3 more in the last 6 weeks, all on days Clara wore the NPS volunteer t-shirt she's so careful to wash on Gentle. Each one paired like Siamese twins with restaurant charges on Market Street or Fifth Avenue. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine if you read the notations in the merchant data closely enough. I do this thing where I go quiet when a machine makes a sound it shouldn't and listen until I can hear which bolt is loose. Money hums too if you hold your ear to the ledger and wait. I called Clara because I wanted to hear her lie to me or tell me I was crazy so I could decide which hurt less. She answered on the second ring, wind in her voice like she was outside. "Hey," she said, warmth on autopilot. "How's the boat life?" "Salty," I said. "What's a hotel cashback?" Silence. Then a laugh. "I don't know. Maybe they finally gave me points for all the times we've driven past hotels and not gone in." "I got a notification," I said. "Hotel, downtown, yesterday." "Yesterday I was at Cabrillo all day," she said. "It must be a mistake. There's a restaurant in Liberty Station that codes as hotels sometimes. You know these banks, they put things in weird categories. A coffee shop is a market. A tire store is a home good. It's all messed." "Why would a restaurant code as a hotel?" I asked. "Because sometimes I can't help myself." "Because America," she said, lightness sharpening. "Do you need me to call the bank and tell them to stop freaking you out?" "I'd like you to tell me what the charge is," I said. "Which restaurant? Who you ate with?" She inhaled like she was about to dive. "You know they need us late sometimes," she said. "We had a volunteer debrief. I grabbed a bite with the coordinator. We were exhausted. I don't remember where. Somewhere with soup." "Soup downtown on a Monday," I said. "Market Street has a lot of soup." "Ryan, don't start," she said, and I heard it, the edge, the tone that says the conversation isn't about facts anymore. It's about controlling whether requesting facts makes you look like a bad man. "You know my whole thing is keeping the park afloat. If I grab dinner after being on my feet for 9 hours, that's not a crime." "I didn't say it was," I said. "I said the bank thinks you love hotels." "I'm going to go," she said, voice softening the way people do to be more effective, not more kind. "This is ridiculous. I'll call you later." She didn't. I called the bank. The man on the phone had the embarrassed, in advance tone all customer service people wear like a uniform now. He told me there had been multiple hotel category transactions on my card. He read the last 4 digits like a spell. Could I confirm the dates? Could I confirm the amounts? Did he have my permission to put a temporary hold on the cashback? He warned me, politely, blandly, about fraud. When he used the word dispute, something in my chest scratched like a bird at a window. "Can you send me the folios?" I asked. "For tax purposes, I need itemized receipts associated with the travel rewards." "We can request them," he said. "Sometimes properties respond faster if the cardholder reaches out directly." "Then I will." I wrote to the hotel under my full name with the subject line, "Receipt request, cardholder needs itemization for cashback." I copy-pasted the dates and amounts. I said, "Please, thank you, I appreciate you." You learn early in this world that a man with a file full of please and thank yous gets more doors open than a man with caps lock and threats, the front desk manager wrote back within the hour. "Of course, Mr. Hale," she wrote, attaching the statements for the dates you specified. "As a courtesy, I've included arrival and departure times." The first one staggered me. Check-in at 11:14 a.m. Check-out next day at 9:52 a.m. 2 breakfast charges. Room service burger at 11:22 p.m. 2 place settings. The name on the reservation? Clara Hale. Additional occupant under Ryan Hale. The desk manager had kept it polite enough to keep her job. Polite enough to tell the truth without deciding what I deserved. My first thought was a petty one. She had used my name to make her cheating look legitimate. My second thought was stupider and more dangerous. Maybe she had reserved the room because she needed somewhere to nap between tide pools and petition tables and meetings with the Friends of Cabrillo about the donation box that always came up light. I lived on that second thought for one more breath than I should have. Then I opened the second attachment. Check-in at 2009 p.m. on a day she wore the gray hoodie that makes her eyes jump out of her face. Check-out next day at 5033 p.m. Late checkout. Brunch for 2 at a place around the corner I took her to on our second anniversary when we were too broke for an entree each and split the steak frites and didn't tell the server because we were embarrassed. 2 cappuccinos, 2 eggs Benedict. The third attachment had a bar tab. Wine by the glass eggs too. I attached them all to a new email and sent them to myself with the subject line, "Be brave." Then I sat in my truck until my hands went numb from the air and turned it off and listened to myself breathe. I thought about going to the park and waiting, but Cabrillo is open air and honest, a place to be seen. Whatever needed to hide would not be standing on the point where the Navy ships come in and the seagulls scream. It would be in a room where the door locks with a thump you can feel in your rib cage if you're in the hallway at the wrong time. I told nobody, not my sister in Phoenix who would have been on a plane in an hour with an overnight bag and iced coffee in her hand. Not my buddy Marco at the yard who knows the divorce lawyer all the boat guys know and calls him Captain Alimony like it's funny. I worked, I fed the dog, I made a sandwich and left half on the plate because I spelled the word hotel in the mustard with the back of the knife like a crazy person and then wiped it before it dried. I slept on the left side of the bed, and if I dreamed, I let the dream run out before I tried to remember it. On Friday, 2 more emails came from the hotel older folios I'd asked for as a fishing expedition. I half expected to come up empty. They didn't. 6 weeks ago. 8 weeks ago. Always Mondays. Always check-ins near lunchtime on days when the volunteer roster in Clara's tablet, which I opened out of muscle memory because I help her with the form when the website acts like it forgot how to render, showed her scheduled for interpretive tours and collection inventories. The NPS schedule put her at the park until 5. The hotel's logs put her in a room until 10. I added restaurant data like stitching on a wound. 2-person tables, a note in the merchant data for bistro share plate, those little secret codes card companies use to decide if you should get 5% back or a pat on the head. Liberty Station, East Village, gas lamp. It was a map you could lay over her Instagram and see where the lies had taken selfies. I called her around noon to ask what time she'd be home. She said, "Late, we're doing a beach clean and then a volunteer dinner. The park is hurting, we have to hustle, don't wait up." "Rain check," I said. "What?" she said, laughing like she had missed a joke. "On dinner? We don't have plans." "Right," I said. At 3, I called an attorney. I used the number in Marco's phone and braced myself for a man who called everyone bro and handed out koozies with his logo. Instead, I got a woman named Nguyen who sounded like someone you would trust to land a plane if the pilot fainted. "You don't have kids," she said after I answered her questions. "You own your house jointly. You have separate retirement accounts. The card is in your name. The savings is in your name. The behavior you're describing involves misuse of your credit and a pattern." "I don't want to blow up her life," I said, and even as I said it, I realized how much of me had been trained to talk about consequences like bombs I was choosing to drop instead of like gravity. "You're not," she said. "You're putting fire breaks where the fire is headed. Quietly is an option. My favorite, in fact." "What do you need?" I asked. "Dates," she said, "amounts, copies of statements, any communication that supports your narrative. And I'm going to tell you something you will want to ignore because it feels small and mean. Stop arguing. Start documenting." I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it What Is, because evidence felt like a TV show, and truth felt like a body we were about to autopsy. I saved the folios. I exported a CSV of card charges. I printed the park's public volunteer calendar for the last 2 months and highlighted her name. I opened my toll transponder portal and grabbed the times her car hit the bridge into downtown on a Monday afternoon. I took the hotel manager's polite attached receipts and wrote the check-in and check-out times in ink in the margins next to the phrases "to place settings" and "additional occupant Ryan." I did not underline my name. I could feel it like a bruise even when I pretended I didn't. I did something I'm not proud of and I can defend anyway. I searched our text messages for the word hotel. It was in there once, on our anniversary last year, when I sent, "Someday, let's get a hotel downtown and be tourists." And she wrote back, "Someday." And I thumbed a heart and kept working because there was a leaking shaft seal on a twin screw I had to rebuild before the storm came in. I stared at the someday and let it cut. Then I put my phone down and went and washed the dog because his smell and happiness are not negotiable. On Sunday, the hotel manager, perhaps against policy, perhaps because she has eyes and ears, wrote again. "Mr. Hale," she said, "just confirming for your file that the additional occupant fees is applied when a second guest is listed at check-in on the reservation. Our system reflects that this was used on the dates you noted." It was only a sentence. It was a lifeline. Clara came in around 7 from her park day, hair full of wind, cheeks pinked by sun that felt like a stranger. She kissed the dog, and the dog forgave the day immediately, as dogs do. She started to tell me about a toddler who threw a starfish back into the pool and a grandfather who asked too many questions about the lighthouse. She stopped when she saw the kitchen table. I had set everything out the way I wish someone had done for me when I was 21 and got my first apprentice paycheck and thought I'd always be okay without a plan. Not like a trap, like a picture. Bank statements, restaurant slips, the hotel folios lined up in a neat grid, the volunteer calendar with yellow highlighter like a path, my lawyer's business card with her name turned face down because this wasn't her night, it was ours. Clara looked at the table and then at me like she was checking whether I was a safe place to fall or a cliff. She opened her mouth and closed it. She took a step toward the table, not me, and touched a receipt like it might be hot. "What is this?" she asked. "Quiet," I said. "Just look." "Ryan," she said, a whine curling around my name. "The way kids say mom when they want the candy anyway. Please." "Look," I said again. My voice wasn't hard. It had a center it hadn't had in months, maybe years. She picked up the top folio, skimmed, laid it down, picked up the next, her breath hitched on 2 place settings. When she got to the restaurant with the 2 cappuccinos, she smiled for a second, the way you smile when something reminds you of a first date, and then clamped her lips like she'd swallowed it back. She set down the last piece of paper and looked at me like a person stepping out of a story where she was the hero and finally seeing the stage directions. "I can explain," she said. "You can tell me what happened," I said, "and I'll decide if explanation is a thing in this house." "It's not like you think," she said, which is a sentence I wish I could stab out of the dictionary with a screwdriver. "He's a donor. He's on the Friends board. We met to talk about a grant. The hotel is where he has status, so we could use the lounge." "The lounge is upstairs," I said, "behind a door." "It's quiet," she said, almost pleading now. "The tide pool meetings get loud. The volunteers take everything personally. He needed somewhere private. I was stupid. I let one thing become 2. "How many?" I asked. Her eyes flickered to the calendar and counted without moving. 5, she said, and then quickly, like a child bargaining over bedtime, "But that doesn't mean—" "The folios are 6, I said. She stared at the paper as if it had betrayed her too. "I told myself I was doing something brave," she murmured. "Finding resources, working the relationship. Isn't that what people get praised for?" But I liked that he liked me. "There it is. Say it. Say I'm shallow. Say I wanted to be wanted by someone who thought I was nothing but good." "That would be kind of me," I said. My voice wasn't kind. It wasn't cruel. It was a level. It would also be a lie. "You like yourself. You like a crowd liking you more. You used my card because it kept you from having to see yourself clearly. The bank did it for you." "He paid for dinner," she said, quick, offering me a consolation prize nobody asked for. "Him paying for steak doesn't put my name on a room," I said. She sat down in the chair we bought at a flea market and refinished together with a stubbornness that made me love her once. She put both hands flat on the table like she was steadying heavy paper. "I hate that you did this like a cop," she said. "Quiet. Sneaky." "I did it like a man who knows what happens when rage gets to write the first draft," I said. There isn't enough soap to wash that off, Clara. I'm not getting in those showers. I'm not giving you the story where I scream while you take a video in your head of the worst version of me and play it for friends until it turns into the man you talk about at brunch. I made a file. I didn't make a scene. She looked at me with the worst face I know on her, the one that says cry and I'll refill the well with pity for the next hour so you forget you're thirsty. She didn't cry. She straightened. What now? She asked. I talked to a lawyer, I said. She will call you. We will end this without setting ourselves on fire in public. We don't have kids. We can be decent. I'm asking you to be decent. My savings is mine. The card's getting closed today. We'll split the house or I'll buy you out. I'll ask for nothing else. You don't get to rewrite this as a misunderstanding or a romantic tragedy. You don't need to hate me to do the paperwork. You're leaving me, she said, soft, like it was a surprise and not a math problem you could do in your head if you weren't too scared to turn it in. I'm leaving the lie, I said. You can keep any parts of it you want. She put her hand out like she might touch the back of mine and then thought better of it. I wanted to be someone, she said in a voice I recognized from the girl she must have been before I knew her. The park is a way I talk to the world. He made me feel like I was loud enough. You're so calm. You shrink everything until it's a bolt you can tighten. I needed a song. I'm not denying you songs, I said. I'm denying you rooms you pay for with my name. She nodded like she was accepting a verdict in a case where she already knew the sentence. I'll call your lawyer tomorrow, she said. I won't make it messy. Thank you, I said, and meant it. The dog thumped his tail under the table because, to him, any exchange of words is a prelude to people standing up and therefore potentially walking toward a leash. That night, I lay in the dark and tried out the shape of the room without her breathing beside me. The house creaked the way it does when a breeze moves through it like a careful thief. I thought of the hotel's quiet carpet and how the silence of that hallway had been their ally. I thought of how in my kitchen, silence was mine. I did not fill it with yelling. I let it hold me up. It felt like a thing you could lean on without looking like you were weak. Over the next weeks, the paperwork walked where it was supposed to. Nguyen ran point. Clara answered calls. We did the signatures. We met once in her car in the park lot at sunset because she insisted on handing me the spare key in person, like a little ritual could bless what the law would make clean. We hugged. She smelled like honest wind for the first time in months. I told her I hoped she would keep volunteering because no one owns the sea and you can't give a man a lighthouse just because he used a door key. Her friend from the volunteer circle texted me one night, a number I didn't recognize that somehow still carried the smell of her lemon hand lotion. She said, "You're a good man." And I stared at the screen like it might feel my shoulder lift and lower at that. "You did the right thing, quietly. That matters." I didn't write back. There are compliments that start a fire. There are ones that put one out. That one did neither. It sat in a pocket like a tool you don't need today and might tomorrow. I kept my savings, not because I weaponized pain, because I did the thing no one applauds. I shut up and kept records. I had thought silence was cowardice. It turned out, in the right room, it was power. Sometimes I drive past the hotel to make the city small again and remind myself that trouble is often only as big as the two people who carry it. It sits there with the same bland name and the same promise of espresso for people who don't mind if anything will do. I pass under the freeway at 16th and watch the tourists gawking at Little Italy like it invented food. I buy a sandwich and eat it on a bench at Waterfront Park where kids run through fountains designed by committees. I watch the sunset stain the water, a color we keep naming even though we never get it right. I let the night do what nights do. I go home. I feed the dog. I sleep. Clara still posts from the park. Turn nests. Shoreline cleanups. A kid's hand holding a shell. The donor was gone from her photos before the ink dried on the first receipt. Maybe he found someone else to be loud with. Maybe he slipped back into his wife's kitchen and kissed the top of her head and meant it. I try not to narrate his life with the bitterness that comes easy. Bitter is free. Peace has a price. I tell this story because I wish someone had told it to me sooner, in a voice that didn't sound like revenge. People think the way to regain power is to throw a plate. Sometimes it's to print a receipt and set it on the table in good light. Sometimes it's to shut the door gently behind a person and lock it and put the key where you won't trip over it anymore. If your bank texted you about a hotel reward you didn't earn and the folios lined up with your partner's volunteer days, would you confront with noise or line up every quiet proof until there was nothing left to argue? Where's your line between trusting and letting your name cover the bill for a life you didn't choose? If this resonated, share your take in the comments and subscribe for the next one.